Welcome back to the Arbitrage.Run show with your host Donkey Teeth and Kevin from Arbitrage Racing. Newly married, Kevin, congratulations, man. How's it feel?
Thank you. Feels pretty similar. No, it was a great weekend. Just watching us just slip down the leaderboard and get just totally overtaken by Wagme and his gang of double uppers. No, but it was a great weekend. A nice little break from Zed, I'd say, which was probably a couple years overdue, some would say, but had a great time. You know, the wife is happy, so she's happy. I'm happy.
Yeah. Happy wife, happy life. Yeah, I don't know how you do it. I without a break. I mean, like I said, I've taken a break the last 2 years for pretty much a month, and I was pretty checked out for the past 10 days too. So you didn't have my assistance in racing either. But this whole new meta with 1v1s is not super friendly to our stable either, is it?
No, it really rewards like having the level advantage and not the variance that we love so much. So it's fine. I mean, it brings new horses, and I know we're going to talk about it a little later. It brings new horses a ton of value, which is always good if we're getting new horses being the best horses in the game.
Yeah, well, this is the shifting meta that everyone's been talking about. It's a thing. Hopefully, in the future, as Zed matures, it's the metas they're able to coexist, where it's not like everything just kind of totally flips like it has in these past few months. Suddenly, variance becomes super valuable, and now stability is again super valuable. It's really an interesting dynamic with such a small community and like little tweaks to formats and stuff, and tournaments going on pause or whatever. It changes everything so dramatically right now with the size of community and the volume of races, right?
Oh yeah, big time. And then not to talk too much about Wagging, but I think they've done some really interesting things recently where like the meta shifted back in their favor, but they've been reinvesting. If you look at the recent purchases, they've been reinvesting to help like round out their stable on the variance front, where I think they realize long term end game you're going to be racing like 700 versus 700, and they've bought like I think Flick of a Lifetime bright and early on the marathon side, and then they bought I think Sluz and who was the other one? Beauty is her name, and all for like very affordable deals because right now variance is out. So got some fire sale prices on that while they're printing to pay for those with their 1v1 double up types.
Yeah, no, it was a good topic. We weren't really planning on talking about this, but I think it is. It's easy for people to say, kind of like they have about you and us, like, "Oh, it's so easy when you've got Ready Set Boom to be a dominant stable." Same could be said for Wagme. Like they've invested a ton of capital in these Z1s, figured it out in terms of engagement that do dominate these 1v1s, but they're pretty darn savvy rounding out their stable, bringing in these variance pieces, and they have been for a while. Like we've said, we kind of look at our stable as a portfolio and making sure that we're covered in all of these areas because things are going to shift, and it's a dynamic landscape here in Zed. So kudos to Wagme, and I love to see them reinvesting too. Their confidence in Zed is right there with ours.
Yeah, they're the original TED Racing, people who weren't around a year plus ago. And now they're kind of the modern TED Racing.
So what we did have on our docket here for today's show, Kevin, we want to talk about the Maiden was just announced last night. We're recording this on Thursday afternoon in the U.S. So Wednesday night, the bi-weekly Maiden was announced. We want to kind of run down some format changes, what that's looking like. We need to spin the wheel from the last Maiden, from the people that got into our raffle. So we'll pick a winner for that. We'll announce whatever we're going to do, some sort of promo where we're going to here for this Maiden, but we want to offer some sort of profit share if somebody buys one of our UUUs for this smaller Maiden. Then we also want to discuss 1v1 strategy, since that has come out since our last show. Like I said, I've been out of town for like the past almost 2 weeks now, and it's crazy how much everything is like looks different. We got open class now, all these different kind of formats. So we want to talk. Well, we got the new filters, which we knew was coming, but it's awesome to have them now. We've got the sort option, so you can see the races that are close to filling, which is a game changer too. So we got this new race scheduler. We want to discuss all that kind of stuff, new racing options. And then we got a couple horse reviews that we're going to, people kind of messaged us on Twitter about, and we don't always have time to respond, but I think we might have time on the show to do a quick rundown of a couple horses that people asked us about. So that all sound good, Kevin?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So the Maiden, let me do a quick screen share of the Maiden announcement here. All right. So here is the Maiden announcement. So it says 22,000 is the current prize pool, but this is going to grow as people breed more. I was kind of thinking, Kevin, that they were going to do it based on the last Maiden off of the breeding income there, but it looks like it's just going to be like a dynamic kind of growing jackpot that they're going to update us on, huh?
Yeah, it's an interesting way to do it like this. Pros and cons to it. I guess the pro would be that the reward is always like prorated to the amount of entries, right? Like if they have a month where they have, or a 2-week stretch that had a ton of breeds, then you're going to see a bigger jackpot, but a lot more competition for that jackpot. If you see a lower amount like this, let's say no more breeds happen between now and when it runs, and it was like 25K, then yeah, it feels underwhelming compared to the 100K. But since it is tied to the number of breeds, it is 1/4 the competition to get that money. So like it is a little better than it seems when the prices are down. I mean, obviously, I think there's different ways to do it. You could do it less frequently, and then almost guarantee you're going to have that larger prize pool, more competition. So just different ways to think about that.
True. Yeah, it's kind of an interesting game theory too, because they're not going to announce like the structure, not only the prize pool structure, since that's unknown until it starts, but they're also not going to announce how many horses make the cut in each class, because that's dynamic too, based on how many horses are bred into each class, which they can see behind the scenes, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know. I mean, we'd all hope they would not just have a zero-sum game where it was just funded by breeds, and maybe they use some of that treasury to beef it up even more. Maybe that's in the plans in the future. So for right now, I think some were a little underwhelmed by that number, but I think it is going to grow. I mean, they even mentioned in the announcement, right? Like the vast majority of the breeds happen in the last 48 hours or so before the maiden. So that's only going to grow with how they have the payout structure aligned.
Right. We've literally done zero. So we've got some left over
Yeah.
from last time, but we'll be going through and breeding all of our Genesis and stuff that are getting close to resetting, and
This
some of the other top
Yeah,
horses.
this is also going to be an interesting one where it's like they had the blowout maiden 2 weeks ago, and a lot of people, like, if you were eligible to breed, you were breeding for that maiden. And obviously, we have the reset every 4 to 5 weeks, being once a month. A lot of those just can't breed again, right? So this is going to just inherently be a lighter maiden by the nature of resets. So might be easier to win than normal.
For sure. So some other changes, Kevin. I like that they've made it now a 3-day event. So it'll be March 6th through March 9th. I think that's an improvement. 7 days is always it's kind of exhausting making it that long. So 3 days will be nice, right?
Be nice, and I think they just have, I think, five races. Yeah, so I mean, it's you can knock that out in an hour if you wanted to, and you had the races popping. So much less investment than the week-long stretch being 20 races, I think it was last time.
Yeah. So you mentioned it. Minimum of 5 races in the distance category, and scoring is going to be average scoring, not best of. I think this is the exact format that you want best of, to be honest, because it's like you run your 5 races now. This is why best of was invented, for this shorter format, 3 days. Like you only need 5, sure. If you're a casual player, easy to get your 5 races and you hit a number that you like, fine. But then you're going to be benching your horses, right? Where best of comes in, it's only 3 days, and you can slam this horse in, a bunch of races over those 3 days. I would have preferred that in the scoring, but I'm sure that there's other people that prefer this way, right?
Yeah, I think there was no way they could come out with this and do best of again after like doing it last time and having to have to go back on that. I mean, I think if they were going to miss, they had to miss in this direction, right? Like just it would just been horrible backlash. Even like logically, best of is better suited for these sprint style like quick tournaments. 3 days still might even be too much for a best of. Maybe it's like a 12-hour where you can run 8 instead of 5. But in 3 days, you could still have someone who runs 30 races plus. Maybe someone get 50 in that amount of time. So it's truly then you'd have those random tie breaks. You're only taking best 5. So I would like to see best ofs be like less than a day type tournaments, or a bigger best number. But you're right. Like it would have been much better suited for this than the 7-day.
Yeah, or you know what, and this is probably not like an easy switch to flip programming wise, but like best 10 races, best of 10, and you can only run 20. It's only counting from your first 20. So it'll take best 10 out of 20. I think that would work.
Yeah, so you aren't obligated to dedicate that much time into it if you want to, but it gives the person who wants to grind it and wants to do as many as they can an option without overpowering the best of format.
Yeah, I think that's the solution. It's going to be 1,200, 1,800, 2,400. It's now going to be 12 horse free races, so not those sixes that pop off like crazy. And your horse, I guess this is the solution, right? Your horse is going to have less than 21 lifetime races. So they actually that would have solved the best of, right? They already solved
accidentally did what you were saying.
Yeah.
just now. Maybe they thought of that. Maybe they thought of it, and maybe they're kind of planning that for a future one.
Hopefully,
I'm perfectly fine with these like smaller maidens being quicker to qualify, less investment, and then maybe like if they ever have the big ones where they juice the pot a little bit, then you make it more of an event. You make it 5-7 days, make it some kind of format like we're describing. But I'm fine with this smaller format, less time invested for a smaller pot.
Yeah, I think it's important to remember that this really is like last time when we had Facundo on for round 2, he talked about all these stopgap solutions. That's really where this feels like we're at here. It's like biweekly maidens, maybe not a thing in a couple months after aging has kicked in, but right now, like you have to bring some sort of incentive to breed. And now we've got a little bit more healthy ecosystem with all of these like Breed 3.0 races and Breed 2.0, 3.0 races available with the segmenting too by Z number, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I think that race change, making it a conditional, is a really good quality of life change. There were, depending on how people feel, like some were okay with racing their beasts in these free just to get some XP against some of the maiden qualifiers, but this at least makes it where you cannot do that, which will take some of the skill away from sniping like lighter fields, because all fields will be just more level as a result of this. So it does take some of that skill away, but it's just a much easier format for the common user.
Agreed.
And fair, for sure.
Yeah, well, and speaking of fair, so we did our promotion last Maiden, whatever it was. I don't know. Time is messed up in the ZED world. Maybe 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, whenever. I think it was 3 weeks ago, almost 3 weeks ago now, the last Maiden started. So we were giving away 10% of our profit in Lucky Maiden 10 and 10% of our winnings in the actual ZED Maiden to 2 people. We haven't done the raffle yet. We got it pulled up here. We will do the raffle in a minute. But just want to say, you know, a testament to things being a little bit more balanced in this new world where you've got the classed out maidens. We only made 0.21 ETH. And I guess we should always say ETH right now is like $1,650. So for reference, that was a pretty low output for us in the ZED Maiden relative to what it had been in the past. And we also, I think we ended up Maiden. So we're not even going to do a draw for that here on the wheel. We're going to draw 2 winners and give away 40% of our winnings from the ZED Maiden. I guess we should say part of this was like we sold 49 horses for that. Everyone was excited. You know, it was $100,000 maiden. We were planning on running probably like 30 of these horses. These were like our best breeds. We ended up selling them. Some of them did really well for other people, which makes us happy. But I think that was part of why our profits were way down as well. We made quite a bit from, you know, breeding sales, but we didn't do as well in racing, which is kind of the levers that we have to pull over here, right?
Yeah, and I think it's better for the ecosystem for the one like selling it and somebody else is getting the racing profits in perpetuity. But yeah, maybe we should have like tracked our like breed earnings, right? Like how much did our breeds win in the maiden? That would have been interesting to track, and maybe we could do that going forward. But yeah, interesting.
Yeah, well, message us if you bought one of these horses from us and it did well. We don't need to know if it was terrible. I know the creation of mortals, a Marajo kid, did well on I want to say the buyer messaged me and it ended up netting close to $1,000 in the ZED Maiden. I don't even know if it was in the Lucky Maiden or not, because that ran quite a bit after. But there were definitely some winners in this pool. So glad to see it. And it's much more fun racing and winning than breeding and winning, I got to say.
Very true.
All right. You ready? You ready to spin this, Kevin?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So 2 winners. We're going to select 2 winners from this raffle. If you bought more than 1 horse, you got multiple entries. So I think there was one stable that has 3 entries on here and a couple that have 2. So first winner for 20% of our winnings. And also we're going to give you the option, because like 20% of 0.21 is still not that much. It's like 0.042 Ethereum, I think. If you want, we'll give you an option of a UUU that we have left over, and you can run that in this Maiden instead of taking the 0.04. So a little bit more value there too. So we'll message these 2 stables, but here's the first one. Good luck, everyone. Gap Stables.
All Congrats, right. Gap.
So we'll remove Gap. And then the second winner here. No Soup. No Soup Stables. Okay, so Gap and No Soup. Reach out if you see this before we reach out. If we don't hear from you in a couple of days, we'll reach out and give you your option of your 0.04 winnings or one of these UUUs that you can run in this upcoming Maiden. So Kevin, we'll run a small promotion here for this next Maiden. I think we discussed it before the show, and we said what we're going to give away 20% minimum of our winnings in the ZED Maiden this time to somebody that buys one of our UUUs. I think we got like 24 sitting there in our Haku sales stable, and we'll breed some more here and throw them in there as it goes. So that's what we discussed, right, Kevin?
Yeah, 20 is good. We can beef it up if there's a lot of entries, but I mean, at least 20.
And yeah, potentially if we have another poor showing like this was, we'll give away UUU or something like that to people in there. But it's the Arbitrage UUU sales. So if you buy one from this stable, like I said, there's only like 24 in there right now. You'll get an entry into that raffle for part of our winnings, 20% minimum, potentially more. But yeah, I think that's everything on the Maiden, Kevin, right?
I think so. Your Haku notifications stress me out.
Yeah, I think that's like an old stable of mine that is just a bunch of random stuff. It's logged in. So 1v1 strategy was the next thing that we're going to talk about, Kevin, since these came out since the last time that we had Dan on the show. So you wanted to pull up a couple of examples. I guess I'll just kick it over to you before I pull up some ZSIM examples on horses that have been crushing it, mostly for WagMe in these 1v1s. But why don't you give your quick thoughts on 1v1 first before we dive in on specific examples?
Yeah, I mean, I think 1v1 is, I mean, it's a great addition to the ecosystem. It's a lot more like personal, meaning like the trash talk is just more direct. It's more like you see Smiley out there having a blast where he's like playing for glory. It's a lot easier to do that, and I think like talk smack directly than it is to like just talk smack to 11 other stables, as weird as that sounds. So I think it's a great addition. In terms of the types of horses, it helps. I think it's pretty clear. I think there's been a lot of good buys of the stable types of horses from really across the whole ecosystem. So it's a lot like double ups where you're looking for that high median speed, which translates pretty well to just level if you're running at the right distance. And then you don't really want that much variance at all. As long as you have the better average speed compared to your competition, you don't want the variance that's going to kind of bring them in to give them a chance to win with your negative roll. So it's almost like looking at it 2 ways. If you're the favorite, you don't want variance at all. If you are the underdog, like Smiley is running his like Bill Zert 2K, that thing always has a chance, because if it gets one of its top 25% variance rolls, it's going to beat any stable horse, no matter the distance, really. So, yeah, I think a lot of people have noticed that with the buying up of stable horses, and we've picked up a few, or picked out a few. We've not really bought any, but I know WagMe bought Blushing Dessert, who in my eyes is if not the best, like one of the best 1400, 1600 types for this format. And so we can start with that one. And I can kind of give my assessment of just some of the races. So we're on ZSim here, looking at some simulations of past races. Looks like you got booted.
You booted me. I didn't get booted. You booted me.
I'm innocent. But for this, I think you're going to notice, like I was saying, if you have the level advantage and you are the more stable horse, then it is such a, like, over the long haul, consistent way to make money. And it's a lot easier too to snipe a field where, as long as you're the second one entering, and there's differing opinions around, like, should it all be blind? Should you never first enter? If you have the patience and are always on Zed, there's a pretty big edge to finding kind of fields that you have a big level advantage. So speaking of that, right, like here's Blushing Dessert facing a 541 and Blushing 600, and they have median speed is just massively different. Variance, this is the example where Blushing's the favorite, so you don't want a lot of variance, because any negative roll, you don't want that to bring Attack of the Clones into this, have a chance. So with the variance being more stable, with a higher median speed, it's no surprise the Blushing Dessert is just a resounding favorite. Like 72% is about as big as it'll get in a head-to-head. So that's not to say like Attack of the Clones couldn't win, but over the long haul, this is going to be massively profitable for WagMe in this scenario. But let's see if we can find a more competitive one, right? So this was a lopsided one, 72%. There's no way to tell on this, so we kind of just got to just pick one out.
Just a little closer.
Yeah, this is closer. So you see the level gap close, right? So instead of being 600 to 540, now it's only an 18 level gap. As a result, median speed tends to get closer. This is the case where, like, Super Remnant, if it were racing a lower level horse, would be really good, because it has virtually no variance at all, coming in at 2.6 compared to even Blushing Dessert at 4.2. So if Super Remnant was ever the level favorite, it would almost always be the favorite in a 1v1. But what gets really interesting is as the level gap closes, and let's think about like the game at level 700, the only advantage, like, to be frank, like Blushing Dessert has right now is it's stable, but not like super stable, but it has the level advantage, which then correlates strongly with median speed being so much higher, which is really all you need in a 1v1. But in game, if it's actually like 700 versus 700, you're going to see the median speed become much more level and more of a coin flip. So there's a lot of pressure on the Blushing Dessert types to continue to outpace the competition when it comes to grinding XP and having that level advantage, because as soon as they get caught, there's really nothing that separates them from like a consistent Z1 who just hasn't been leveled because the owner hasn't invested a bunch of their time or money leveling it up. So I think what you will find is once XP becomes easier to come by, once aging comes out, you're going to see in game and all these these horses that were not leveled up previously being able to level up faster and easier. And once they get to 700, there's going to be no difference in the best 1v1 and like the 50th best 1v1, and they'll be flipping coins as long as it is like a 1v1 archetype with the consistency. Is that kind of what you're thinking too, Donkey?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's that's why it's so hard to value anything right now, right? Because we've got all of these unknowns. We know that it's going to be easier to get XP. We don't know what the value, secondary market of XP is going to end up really looking like, or how quick we'll be able to accumulate it, or exactly how much we'll be able to add to any one horse. Even if you max out, like, it sounds like it's like, say, Blushing Dessert, like WagMe, I don't know if it's going to be weekly or daily or what, but like, say you got 10,000 XP this week with Blushing Dessert, maybe you'll be able to add 3 times that or something along the line in purchased. So it'll be capped like that. But if other horses are able to catch up much quicker, and what's the value of Blushing Dessert, and I'm curious to hear what your thoughts are, because we did discuss buying this horse, and I think WAGME ended up buying it as we were discussing it for 3.15. I think we were a little bit lower than that valuation, right?
Yeah, we were super close. I mean, and like I said, in my eyes, this horse at this point is like the best 1400 and one of the best 1600 1v1s in the game. So that's where it becomes like, what is the value of that? Because I don't think long term it is. Like, there's once again nothing separating this horse aside from level right now that makes it beat a Z1, for example, who's also super stable with not much distance preference. But the level advantage is huge. So how much can you print on the way up to 700 is the big question. But I think that's why, like, we were around 2.5 on this. And I'm sure I haven't checked. I'm sure WAGME's done very well in the last week racing this horse. But you gotta get it quick, because I don't know if the long-term ROI is going to be there. So it's one of those where, like, you need to project, like, how much can you make from this horse in the next 3 months, and then just assume anything on top of that is gravy.
Yeah, I mean, the other unknown too, Kevin, is, like, we talked about it with Facundo, but obviously he's not going to give any too specific answer on, like, how difficult is it going to be to get to 700? Because, like, sometimes you talk like all horses are going to be at 700. I don't think that wasn't the vibe that I got from him, right? It seemed like it was going to be a little bit more of a rare feat, right?
I think of it as, like, rare feat, yes, but you could say, like, in the big scheme of things, like, class 1 is a rare feat right now. But I don't feel like being class 1 horse is rare at all. Does that make sense? Like, you could say only 10% of horses can get to 700 if they're grinded appropriately, but that's just like class 1. So I don't know. I think it's just more of a terminology difference there, where I think if you have a class 1 horse, I expect if you want to get to 700, you'll be able to.
Yeah, it'll just take that monetary investment of whatever. And that's going to be the other really interesting factor, like trying to do the math on, is it worth it, right? Because it depends on how many other people are doing it and how long you're going to have on the top before all these other horses get there too, right?
You got to have that edge, and you got to be able to, like, once you're able to buy XP, you're going to have to then invest in XP to keep that edge ahead of others. But yeah, I know you just pulled up the profit. I think this is around when they bought Blushing Dessert, and they've done extremely well. That's 1 week. It's made 0.46. And go to transfers, click transfers on Marketplace. Yeah, so around a week. That's roughly it. So, I mean, they've already made back, if they paid 3.1, I mean, they've already made back 15%, right? That's a great pace.
Good week.
I will say, I think that's where, like, the skill becomes projecting, like, what is 1v1 volume going to be now and in the future. Things always taper off in ZED and really anywhere. So I don't expect this pace to maintain at all. But that's a great start, and it's making that 3.1 price look amazing.
The other one we wanted to look at is Watch This Baby Go, which recently sold as well, I think.
Yeah, I think it sold for 2.8, made famous on Twitter by Smiley calling it out, being confused why it went for this price. And then people who were more familiar with, I think, the 1v1 ROI double up type, wasn't me this time, I promise. 1v1 types kind of went to the defense, and, like, it is very similar buy to Blushing at around the same price, where it is one of the best 1v1 horses. But I think it's also a really good example of what I was saying, where there are tons of horses like this that just have not been leveled up, which worries the crap out of me when I think of, like, a long-term investment. But right now it is so consistent. Like, a 2.5 variance is very, like, A-shaped, as we would say. And it's going to have a level advantage over virtually anyone. So with that, it leads to these scenarios where you have a 72.8% win rate, which is like almost a 50% ROI, where over the long term, you're just going to see this print until it starts to have to race horses that have the same level, or maybe the next meta is like a 3-horse race. And then all of a sudden, this horse is coming in second every single time because it doesn't have any variance to win those. So it's a very, like, fragile horse, I'd say, but it is amazing for the current meta.
Let's see if we can find another one. Here's a class 1. against Game
Yeah.
Over. Game Over's 580.
And this is a really good example. Like Game
17.
Over is a traditionally really good Z1, has that nice amount of variance, 7.1, an okay level, but you see median speed drop a lot because within that level, some of that equation is giving some of the credit to the variance it has. Whereas Watch This Baby Go, the entire level is just base ability median speed. So even when like you see a Game Over type, if it was at 597, Watch This Baby Go would still be like a 55, 45 win favorite. So Game Over, I would say like it's fun. That's not like the 1v1 type, but it also is fun just to just do 1v1s due to the dynamic of the competition. But this is an example of like a 1v1 type going up against a lower level non 1v1 type, which leads to a really big favorite for Watch This Baby Go.
Yeah, I mean that's interesting too. I think Game Over has like a little bit of distance preference too going into that level, right? Because variance,
Like
like
1800.
as we keep saying, like variance is not a very big factor in the equation as far as we can tell for level. But then you see it when you get 1v1, like maybe it is factored in enough if this is the
I think it's probably
prevailing.
more than I originally gave it credit for. It's just 1v1 isolates for median speed so well where you don't feel it as much when you're in like a top 3 style format because you're like, all right, what is in ZSIM terms, what is 0.5 in median speed? It's not that much. But in 1v1, it could be like I said, it's the difference of being positive ROI versus negative.
Let's try this one. Oh, this is versus the super breed, Jetty.
Jetty's looking good though. Wish we could review that again. That thing's looking awesome. Looks like a better super seed once it's leveled up.
Well, we can do whatever we want.
It's our show.
Jetty. So Jetty has done very well in these 6 gates, huh? Not so
doing
well.
really well. It's kind of donating on the long haul, but that's just some of that's bad timing on when it loses. And it just it doesn't have the level advantage in a lot of these races. But if they are able to stick with this, it'll turn out super nice because that variance it's probably one of the top, I'd say 3 variance horses of 3.0.
Oh wow, look at that.
Yeah, right.
Where are you valuing a horse like this right now, Kevin?
Oh man, an underrated piece of this is like that starting level is big. So like I'm still convinced at some point they're gonna do something with breeding 3.0 that helps weight starting level a little more than it currently is. So I think that's like potentially a sharp buy. So I do like that as an asset. It's probably worth, I don't know, 1.5. What do you think?
I mean, you're the master on valuations. 1.5 seems fair. Are you talking as like a buyer?
Yeah, as a buyer, I wouldn't part with this for 1.5. But I also like there's a lot of risk at 1.5 too, because if the meta never shifts, there's site risk as always with Zed. I don't think you're making that back anytime soon, but I think the upside is huge. Where this is the type of horse I think plays really well at 700.
Gotcha. Okay, so back to any other thoughts here on Watch This Baby Go? You want me to pull anything else up?
Let's do a simulate custom race. I think one last thing to hammer this home is like if you have like Watch This Baby Go and let's face one of our horses, was it like Luray Overcast? So like it's LRA in this.
Yeah.
I just want to show like this horse against a very similar type of horse that has not been leveled. And like there's a ton of these Overcast type horses that I mean, it's like the common Z1 looks a lot like this, where they're super stable but have not been leveled up much. So Watch This Baby Go is going to dominate. Like look, neither has any variance, right? So Larea has no shot at beating Watch This Baby Go because Watch This Baby Go is never going to slip to the median speed that Larea has, and Larea does not have the variance to get up to that speed. But once these two level out, they're going to be carbon copies of each other, and the only difference is that 46 level spread. And I think there's just a ton of these types popping out all the time in breeding 3.0 that have that low variance, mild distant preference that just makes these super stable high level buys amazing right now because these types cannot beat the higher level. But once you go peer to peer, level to level at 700, there's just going to be a ton of these. So that's just like an example of a low variance, not so leveled type that could do what Watch This Baby Go's doing if we had wanted to donate a bunch right now. And right now it's not worth it. Leveling's too slow. You would have to lose like, I don't even know, probably half an ETH to an ETH to catch up. And then you're still never going to catch up until XP gets faster. So we're holding a bunch of these types, waiting for aging really, and just being able to level quicker.
Yeah. So Kevin, other things that we wanted to discuss here, I guess the new race scheduler and new race options, we kind of hit on it. Anything else particularly that you want to key in on those two?
No, I mean, I think we can loop in the filters with that as well. Like the filter is my favorite thing Zed's done probably in the last like three months. It's just such a quality of life improvement being able to filter and put the races that are about to fill on top, and then all the other like 12 gate, 6 gate, 2 gate filters, long overdue. And primarily being in class 1, there were so many times where I would have to like go all the way through the 150 whatever races, and by the time you got to the bottom, like somewhere there that were actually filled, but they didn't look filled. So I had this like weird strategy where I would like start at the bottom, see if anything was about to fill, and then work my way up and see if anything was like 9 of 12, so I didn't miss any, because it would take like 30 minutes for all of our horses like just enter everything we needed to. So I was kind of manually filtering, starting at the bottom, looking for things that are about to fill, and then doing another pass for once again. So this just makes my life way easier on that front. Legit probably cuts my time to enter in half. So it's still not perfect, right? It still is a bit of a grind entering, but it's such an improvement.
Yeah, well, and not just for the diehards like us, but for the casual player that just wants, like, I just want to enter a race and see it run in the next 10 minutes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just find me one. I don't even care, like whatever it is. And they just pop right up to the top. You don't have to go sifting through for the needle in the haystack, right?
Yeah, it's great. I know it's like still a little choppy, as it always is when new updates roll out or things are jumping around a bit. That'll get better over time. But yeah, I think all the filters look nice. They have like a My Racehorse filter as well on the inner page, which is great. Really good quality of life adjustment.
And then I guess the open class is the other thing that we should discuss. It looks like I don't know, it was yesterday or the day before, suddenly we got all these like different like 1v1s where your horse has to be between like 15 and 20% win rate or over 20%. I think to me that the cool thing about that is it's just kind of a glimpse into the future of like all the things that will be possible if and when, there's all of these users, right? Like we can have all that kind of stuff. Right now it's like you don't want to throw too much out there where it's overwhelming for our small user base and things aren't filling and stuff like that. But with 1v1s it becomes more practical too, right?
Yeah, I love it. It seems just like super random, which is kind of the Dan Shan special, right? He's shown that works, and he must love all those random cuts. I think it is good. The 1v1, this just doesn't feel great for like the new user. Like if I was in a lower class, if I had like a C2 or C3, even lower horse, I would never, ever, ever be the first one to enter an open class race. Like that is just a prime way to get scooped up by a shark and have like a 100+ level advantage where you really don't have much of a shot. So I love it in theory. I would be careful in terms of like the potential horses you could go up against or enter second and try to snipe it that way.
Yeah, I don't know that it makes a ton of sense long term, but it does seem like something that could just be shifted over. Like it seems like a test environment almost, right? Like you can just shift this like class 2 exclusives with less than 5% win rate or something, like all that kind of stuff down the road. But I think
I think you nailed it. I think it's a test where they're just putting it out there, seeing how it works. And then like there are some interesting formats where like sometimes, I don't know, it might be fun to like take your shot in like a lower stakes at one of the greats, just so you can like have the glory of like, yeah, I beat Breathless Edge that one time. Exactly like Smiley's doing right now with his sprinter running marathons. But yeah, I think that's exactly right, where it's not necessarily built for the open class. It can play there, but it's better built within a class, and why not? It's shown to work.
Agreed. Okay, couple quick horse reviews. Like I said, these guys, one of them messaged both of us. I think Ninja Racing messaged me, and I never even responded. Sorry. Like sometimes I get so many messages and I got stuff going on in real life. Like, and I'm also, I should say, like, not the person that you want to be messaging if you want like an expert opinion on horse valuation. That's Kevin. So fill his inbox up. But he may not respond either. But like every once in a while, if we got time and there's not like all kinds of crazy stuff going on in Zed that we need to hit on the show, or we don't have guests or something, we can do these horse reviews. Not going to make any promises, but we got time right now. So let's hit on these. Ninja wanted to know, see, he wasn't actually looking for a valuation on this horse. He was kind of struggling with this horse recently, Kevin, and was looking for a little bit more guidance on how to run it or maybe not run it, right?
Yeah. So let's drill down a bit, kind of take you through my process as I analyze it. Looks like a bunch of 6 gates, but also a few 12s. Like you can kind of see the 6U and the 12U. I mean, I like the shape of that win compared to like last place. So yeah, let's focus on 6, just because that's where all the volume is these days. So that immediately tells me this thing has more variance than like a normal horse it's racing against. It's what, like almost, yeah, it's like 57% of the races are either first or last. Like that's a telltale sign of like being a hugely variant horse. So I like the sign of that. The other thing that caught my eye was the level. I mean, it just started so low. Just kind of a bad roll being at the bottom of class 3. If this thing had popped out at 299, you'd be absolutely cleaning up class 4. So that's the proof of variance, just looking at it through ZLead. I know there's other options people use like StackNax or ZSim, looking at actual speed numbers, but that is like relative to competition. That is a good sample, shows you 56%, 57% first or last rate is huge. So then I'd scroll down, like, why is this thing so in the red? One thing I expect to see here is like, as you look at it compared to the average level of the field, it's like a 320. I mean, the average level is always so much higher. So it is going to be a bit of a project. But I expect like once this horse gets to at least average in class 3, it should play really well, because I like the shape of the wins and last places. It would only play better in 12 gate, I would imagine. So now let's look at like the distances. It seems like they're just kind of all over the place trying to figure it out. It's normal for a big variance horse to see more flames in the middle, just so they don't get bullied around by distance preference. That doesn't necessarily mean that's where it's going to win the most. Let's see. Go to the horseshoe. I like seeing that, because that you can look at skews within the horseshoe and typically get a good feel on distance preference. Not much volume at sprint.
Do you want 12 gate or 6 gate?
This is fine. I'm good with this. Just I want as much sample as I can get. I think, let me see, 26. They run any 26. Not too much. So yeah, there doesn't seem to be like maybe a slight marathon skew. Like 26 is noise. I would throw out those 7. But when you see the volume at 22 and 24, you see a little bit more on the left than on the right in terms of winning compared to losses. And then I would expect if you had like more sprints, you would see kind of the mirror image. So that would tell me like a little bit of marathon distance preference, some success at 18. So I would explore more 18 to 22 with this and try to build it out. I would stay away from like winner take all. 24, I think, would be good. With it's not a variance, I would never enter double up. And I would look for winner take alls with like top 2 and definitely top 3s would be good. It's keeping it like 18 to 22 and maybe 24.
Makes sense. And then, I mean, I always want to know how you're thinking about valuing something like this, which with all of this shifting meta and surplus of horses that every stable has, I think that also makes it very difficult to value these things. But I'm still going to ask you, where would you be a seller on Shuffler Ninja if it was in our stable, which is maybe not the same as, Ninja Racing stable?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's not, I don't know if it's going to be profitable for a while until they bring back, like until the variance meta comes back. So like, it depends if you want it to be like that long haul investment, or if you wanted to cash it out and try to buy something more 1v1 based. I think like an offer of like 0.25 would be probably strong here in this environment. In terms of a buy side, yeah, I mean, it's definitely a project, but it has some potential with that variance. So maybe like 0.15, 0.2.
Gotcha. And then the other horse, any other final thoughts on this, or you want me to pull up the second one?
No, I think those are like always extremely hard to value because it's not going to make you money in the short term. But there's a lot of things to like when leveling becomes easier, right? And you can get that from 329 to 400 in 3 weeks instead of 6 months. I think that is going to help a lot because everything I see about that, when you get peer-to-peer levels, it's going to perform well.
Right. And such a huge function of any valuation is what ZED looks like in 6 to 12 months, right? Like how many users are there? What kind of stimulus is coming in? Is there some external money coming in to fund prize pools because there's so many people playing the game that naturally boosts every horse's value? Whereas, you look at something like this, it's worth potentially, to our stable, not very much at all because we've got so many of them, but in this future, that changes valuation so much, right?
Yeah, I mean, don't underestimate the impact of being able to level faster.
Born to Battle was the other one, not so stable coin. Actually, messaged both of us, and I think that he was looking for a valuation on this in the early going, and you actually ended up talking to Not So Stable Coin about this. But now there's a little bit more sample. We got 197 races. It's about break even right now, but it has leveled up another 24 levels from where it started. This is a 3.0 horse. What are you thinking on this one? Anything you want me to pull up analyzing this?
Yeah, he's been grinding the crap out of this horse, hasn't he? I love the pairing. The pairing, Born to Finish, one of the best variants, like colts out or mares out there in terms of the Genesis, Buterin style, and then hammering it with DP with Battalion is really interesting. And I think it popped out exactly what you would hope for coming out of this. Got a good, strong starting level. 524 is huge for that combo. And I would imagine it's looking really good in those 526 to 550 races that Class 1 offers, as well as the 3.0. With the U, the same thing you can see in the last one. Like it's got a lot of first, last place relative to the fields. Not the best horse for this 1v1 meta, so it is a little slow at the moment. But like that's a super U. That's like the Nike check mark we look for. And I mean, 23% win rate and 6 gate. That'll make you a lot of money. You wouldn't expect to see many flames here. Let's go to ZSim on this. That's another good one. I think when I looked at this one a week ago, it was like it started out insanely hot, and ZSim absolutely loved it. So I'd be curious of these variance types. A lot of times you need like 100 to 150 races before you can fully trust it. But let's check that. Do like a 24 or 26. Looks like
just this top three, or you want a 6 gate?
Do that one. I really want a 526 to 550, which I imagine this is. Yeah, it is. And you can see like how good it looks relative to
100% ROI is pretty good.
It's peers, yeah, and it's definitely running hot, right? Like you're never going to a good indicator to tell if a horse is overvalued in ZSim is if you have a comparable level and potentially a comparable distance preference. Your median speed should be pretty close. So when you see this median speed is at 113.6, like 2 points bigger than a comparable DP horse, this thing's going to cool off and get closer to that maybe 1 or 112 range. It's still going to be elite, but it started hot, and I would bet a lot that its true speed is closer to that 112. Still would be the favorite in this race. There's that variance we talk about. Any variance higher than that is either a Genesis or a 1.0 breed. Talking about like I Love Pizza, one of the best Genesis variance horses from a Buterin style too. It's a lot like this one's dad or this one's mom, Born to Finish. So that's where it should be hammering. These marathons race against common levels, and I would expect it to print until it gets to 551, and then it's probably still a break even all the way up to like 575, I would imagine.
Yeah, I like this horse a lot. So what kind of valuation did you give Not So Stable Coin when
I gave a number? So let's see. Class 1, it's got a good starting level. 3.0, I mean, helps a lot because once this gets like, it has elite variants for a 3.0. So this is going to look a lot like a super breed when leveled up. It's probably not too far away from that Jetty range where you're talking like it is whatever 15 or so levels behind Jetty, but I mean it's got to be worth at least one, I would imagine, and potentially more depending on how much you're willing to invest to get that level up. The problem is like Class 1 marathon is just it's a graveyard led by like these ready set boom types who just dominate. So it is tough in that funnel. I'd almost rather it be a mid, but if you can race against 3.0s and if you can race 551 to 575, it should clean up for a while.
Yeah, and this one can run at he's got some sprints in here. I was going to say it's probably more of a 2,000 horse than 2,600, right? Just based
It
on
almost
born to
has to be
finish.
like, yeah, like in that's the other thing with 3.0s, the distance preference is never as heavy as the best Genesis or the best 1.0s. So anytime you have those in the field, you're better off going to like 22 or 24 just to neutralize that disadvantage. If it's a 3.0 only race, then it might be a different story where you could play better at 26. And with the variants, you might even like become one of the best at winning. But yeah, I would say 22, 24 as your like go-to distance. Definitely not 1,000 or 12. And you got to test it out, right? Just so you know. But I think it did win one of those sprints too, which probably didn't help the quest to figure out the DP. But 22, 24, and then 3.0 only do 26. I would say it's got to be worth at least one, right? It's one of the best 3.0 marathoners.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. Any other thoughts before we wrap it up here, Kevin?
No, I'm good.
All right. Well, good luck to everybody out there in the Maiden. Again, we're running the promotion 20% of our winnings. We're probably going to keep some of our better breeds that we do here, which I don't know. Like what right now, what is a better breed? I mean, we know the ones that are going to come from like RSB and Supreme Polarity are probably going to be pretty high level in Class 1. Is that the best breed though for this Maiden? With like, I guess the level advantage helps, and there's no super breed. So, but we don't know like what the prize pool is going to look like. So we're really kind of guessing, and we're trying to land at the top of classes if we shoot for Class 2 or Class 3. But
if it's anything like last time, there still might be some super breeds popping out. I think there were like 3 out of like a couple hundred near the time. Just we are due for a run on super breeds. The odds would say so. That is the big disadvantage if you're in Class 1. Obviously, Class 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, you're not going to go up against those beasts.
Agreed. Well, anyway, if you go over to our Arbitrage UUU stable and buy one of those, you'll get a raffle ticket. And if you win, we'll get you either some money or a horse or something to make it worth your while. The other thing, Kevin, before we sign off here, let's see if anybody reaches out and is interested in this, because we've been talking about doing kind of a custom race auction show, which is something that Doofy and I talked about like way back when. He was waiting forever for them to bring custom races out. Now we have the capability, and Zed is willing to set it up. So I pitch this to you. If we get like 6 UUUs from Good Blood and do like a live stream auction, maybe not like us auctioning it, just say we're going to accept the bid at this time and give a countdown or something like that and talk about the horse, and then run a maiden when the actual Zed Maiden is going on. Not this time, but maybe in 2 weeks on the next one. And we auction off 6 horses and then run them all together. And maybe we've got a nice fun prize for the winner of that race, and kind of give the recap and our guesses on what level these are going to pop out and stuff like that. I thought it would be fun. You agreed. So if people are out there and interested, I'm thinking we could do it on Twitch and have Zed set us up a custom Griffin for 6 horses, auction them off, and have a little bit of fun together. So you're still in for that, right, Kevin?
I am, as long as I'm not on the honeymoon.
Oh, right. Yeah, we probably can't do that in 2 weeks. When do you get back?
I get back. I don't know if I should be telling the public this, right? They're going to know when to hit us when we're weak. About like 3 weeks from today.
Well, I don't know how. I mean, you're still going to be racing, and you're going to be over there covering the Australian hours. So, and I'm going to be pitching in the US. We might be stronger than ever. We'll see.
Might be. I'm sorry for the Australians. Yeah, I will be in your neck of the woods for a bit and wrecking your time zones.
They're gonna wreck their sleep schedules. They should stay up all night and race in US hours now.
Yep.
So yeah, let us know if you're interested in that live Twitch auction kind of maiden show. I think it would be a blast, and we'd have a cool prize. I don't know, maybe for the first one we'd come out big with like maybe an RSB full UUU and just throw it up there, that should juice up the auction bidding for that 1 in 6 crack at it. Because we're going to try to make those 6 horses pretty even, at least what our guess is, so that they all have a shot at that winning that maiden. So, all right, Kevin, you have a great time on the honeymoon, and go catch a kangaroo. And I'm going to have I'm going to have Keith on next week. We're going to talk about everything that Keith hates about Zed right now, and hopefully get some solutions from him on what he suggests, some small tweaks that maybe make Zed fun for him again. So tune in for that, and we will talk to you when you get back, Kevin. Thanks, man.
See you.
Bye-bye.